before we begin, we have some brief housekeeping remarks. In the event of an emergency, please use the stage and at the main entrance. Second, please be respectful in your questioning and interruptions. All right, please join us in welcoming to the stage the United States Representative for New York's 20th Congressional District, proudly representing our capital region in the U.S. House of Representatives. Please welcome our Congressman, Tonko.
We're here. Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for joining in this evening's discussion. Thank you to Dr. Duca and the school system here at Ballston Spa. The entire team has been great to work with, to our security personnel and all. And to Libby, how about that rendition of our national anthem? Thank you, Libby. So this past year, well, it's been nothing short of tumultuous. But amidst all of the horrors we've seen, all of you have continued to provide a bright light in the darkness by showing up and speaking out on behalf of our communities with an energy and I would say verve I have not seen in all my years in public office. To kick us off this evening, I'll deliver some opening remarks, followed by a brief conversation with our fantastic moderator, Dr. Yelena Bieberman. And then we'll have plenty of time for an open question and answer portion. I look forward to answering as many of your questions as possible. It's no secret that I would need hundreds of pages and likely days worth of remarks to successfully cover just how much damage the Trump administration has done, in my opinion, over these last 13 months. You could fill a book with all of these destructive policies that have been implemented. And the fact of the matter is, we already have. Call that book Project 2025. In just 1 year of office, President Trump has implemented about 1/2 of the far-right policies outlined in this 920-page document. The extremist manifesto he tried to distance himself from has been the go-to plan of this administration in every aspect of government. And the impact of these policies continues to be felt in devastating fashion. Education cuts and military actions and LGBTQ plus rights rolled back, along with reproductive rights being rolled back. And of course, the saga on immigration, the expansion of ICE operations, mass detention centers, raids in sensitive locations like schools and churches and hospitals, and ending TPS. Few actions by this administration have been as swift or as cruel as its brutal crackdown on immigration communities. In our own capital region, a family of 5, including an 8-month-old who is reportedly a U.S. citizen, was detained and deported after ICE entered their apartment without a judicial warrant, an outrageous violation of our Fourth Amendment. In December, our Afghan community was repeatedly targeted, including ICE arresting a father and son after they exited a mosque following morning prayer. And last month, we all watched in horror as 2 innocent individuals, Renee Nicole Good and Alex Pretty, were shot, killed, and yes, executed by federal agents in Minneapolis. 2 people who should be in the loving arms of their families today were instead killed in the street. It is not enough to oppose continual funding for DHS, though that is necessary, and I will continue to vote against any piece of legislation that would deliver any taxpayer dollars to ICE's coffers. It is not enough to conduct a full federal investigation into the killings of both Alex and Renee, though it is necessary and the barest minimum needed to bring justice for the grieving families and the Minneapolis residents left reeling and broken. It is not enough to impeach Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem, though it is necessary. And I will continue to aggressively push for her impeachment and removal. These actions, though necessary, are not enough. In their brutal and deadly campaign, ICE has lost all public trust. It has lost all credibility. This agency, as it exists and operates, simply cannot continue without that trust and credibility. And that is why I have called for ICE to be abolished. Of course, we're concerned about Border Patrol. There were ways, mechanisms of doing that prior to 9/11. Let's go back to something that works. And it's why I'll continue pushing for this outcome and fighting to bring safety and security back to our communities. Now, on the economy, well, Trump and his administration have terrorized and brutalized our communities. They've done nothing to meaningfully lower costs for working Americans. January was the worst start to a year for job cuts in the United States since 2009, in the midst of that recession. Consumer confidence in the economy is tanking as a direct result of this administration's actions. Healthcare and groceries and utilities and housing, to name a few, all of it are just too costly for working Americans. And instead of taking action to do something about it, like extending ACA benefits or investing in clean energy development or eliminating his disastrous tariffs, Republicans are working hard to write another blank check to support ICE's crackdown. Now, I know I have painted a grim picture of the state of our union. I know that in the face of countless illegal actions and this administration's flood the zone strategy of chaos, this response doesn't seem like enough. And it's true that there will be no single cure, all that rights every wrong. But united together, we can, and I'm convinced we will, make a difference. We need to lean into our power, each and every one of us in this room and beyond. That's an essential part of our democracy and our citizen action. Our democracy demands vigilance, it demands engagement, it demands collective commitment to preserving freedom and justice for future generations. We must remember my late colleague in Congress and a dear, dear friend, and a true icon of the civil rights movement. Of course, I'm talking about Representative John Lewis. And I'll quote his words. To quote Representative Lewis, "Ours is the struggle of a lifetime, or maybe even many lifetimes, and each one of us in every generation must do our part. And if we believe in the change we seek, then it is easy to commit to doing all that we can, because the responsibility is ours alone, to build a better society and a more peaceful world." With that in mind, I'm deeply grateful to the thousands of you who have reached out to my office to make your voices heard. Your engagement serves as a powerful reminder that democracy indeed depends on all of us. I am proud to continue to stand side by side with all of you as we fight together to protect our neighbors, defend our values, and yes, safeguard our democracy. So let's go out there and make, as John Lewis would encourage, good trouble. Good trouble. And I might say necessary trouble, if not urgent trouble. But thank you again for being here. I appreciate you joining us tonight, and I look forward to the conversation with Dr. Yelena Bieberman and to answering your questions here this evening. So with that, thank you again, and on with our conversation.
Please join us in welcoming the discussion with question and answer session. An expert in international security and emerging technology, an associate professor of political science at Skidmore College, a fellow with the Wilson Center and the Atlantic Council, an alumnus of the Albany High School, Wellesley College, also Harvard and Brown Universities, and most importantly, a proud resident of the Capital Region. Please give a warm Ballston Spy Capital Region warm welcome to Dr. Yelena Bieberman.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you for doing this. I appreciate it. Have a seat, please.
Okay, thank you very much, Congressman Tonko. Public service deserves the best that we can give, and we're glad to have you.
On the side of it.
All right, I will now take the mic. I will repeat this because I think I said something very important. What I said was that public service deserves the best from all of us, and we are glad to have you, Congressman Tonko.
Thank you.
So for this portion of the event, we will proceed with a few of the questions that I selected out of the many pre-submitted questions we've received from your constituents. Following which, we will move into live Q&A with tonight's audience. Okay, Congressman. The first question is, many constituents are deeply concerned about ongoing efforts tied to the White House and allies to undermine democratic norms and the rule of law. From your seat in Congress, how are you working to defend democratic institutions and ensure accountability, especially when norms are being tested so openly?
Right. Well, thank you for the question, Doctor. I believe that it's important for us to make certain that as members of the House of Representatives, as members of Congress, we need to make certain that the understanding and the implementation of three distinct branches of government is real and going to guide the process. We do not, I think, benefit if one of those branches becomes more aggressive than the other two. So it's important for us to take judicial actions. It's important for us to engage the public. I can think of things that the public has driven that we have been incorporated on the House floor. It's well known that the House has the power of the purse, and then it's confirmed by the Senate. So all of these efforts, many of these efforts on spending should begin with us. But in regard to some of the situations with Congress, it is important for us to make certain that as we go forward, for instance, with tariffs, that is a responsibility, a power of the purse that rests with the House. And we need to make certain that there's an engaged opportunity where we demand that these tariffs are suspended or at least reviewed before they're implemented by this president. One vote comes to mind of recent, and it was driven by public sentiment. There was an effort to undo the tariffs applied to Canada, an ally and a neighbor, and a frequent partner of trade activity with the US. I know that my colleagues on the Republican side were all given a memo from the executive branch saying, do not support this legislation. But it was the public sentiment, the public involvement that made a difference, because enough people cracked from that majority of Republicans to support what we did, and we've undone that Canadian tariff. So it's engaging, leaning into your power that is so very important. And the same was true with the Epstein files, which I'm sure we're going to talk about tonight. But with the Epstein files, that pledge by the president that became a broken pledge, a broken promise to release all of the files, was brought to the head on the House floor, where again, public sentiment ruled. And I'm reminded of President Lincoln's statement. Public sentiment is everything. With it, nothing can fail. Against it, nothing can succeed. And so please understand that the generations worth of activity in this country, our history is replete with public action that has driven many, many courses of success throughout our great service of nearly 250 years. And those are examples of how we can engage the public, advance judicial action, legislative action, taking it to the floor and turning around what is an ignoring of the three distinct branches of government.
Thank you very much. I agree with you. It is hard to see that democracy is alive and well with the people.
And I should thank you, by the way, for engaging as a professor at Skidmore with the whole subject of history. So, we rely on higher ed to continue to allow students to chase those dreams. So thank you.
Thank you very much. It is my privilege. It is my privilege. I should mention that I will be asking you next question. Before I do, I want to mention that my family and I came to this country as refugees from the country of Belarus. And so the next question to you is about Trump's administration use of ICE and other federal agencies to pursue harsh immigration enforcement tactics that have torn families apart, deported or arrested individuals who had legal status in the US, and spread fear in immigrant communities. How are you working in Congress to push back against those policies, protect due process and human dignity, and advance an immigration system that reflects our values while keeping communities safe?
Right. Well, thank you. I think the actions of the last year, this first year of the second Trump administration, has really reminded us and perhaps challenged us to move forward with sound, bicameral, bipartisan discussion, negotiations on immigration reform. We desperately need that as a nation of immigrants. We need to have that sound legislation that will provide for a pathway to citizenship. We have, as a nation of immigrants, always relied on that workforce. And many times it's easy to acknowledge that the passion of this country is best expressed by those newly entered that are chasing their American dream. So as to making certain that we make the system better, I said in my opening remarks that I have taken a stand publicly and aggressively to abolish ICE. But we still will need a border patrol. And I've also been working with my colleagues primarily in the Democratic caucus because there isn't too much movement on ICE pushback from the other side. But working within my caucus, there are a number of reforms, at least 10 that I can think of, that they want to incorporate before anything goes forward to ICE. I don't think they deserve another dollar. They made out with a bonanza in the big, beautiful bill, which many call the big, ugly bill. While we cut health care, while we cut nutrition programs and essential services and a number of areas, including Medicaid and Medicare, deep, painful cuts in the trillions of dollars. But who scored well in the big, beautiful bill? ICE, $75 billion worth. And that's why I thought it was such a vulgar bill, and it didn't deserve my support. But back to the reforms. We want reforms to that legislation, to the ICE legislation, to the law, that I think could be carried over to negotiations if and when we abolish ICE, incorporate those reforms with the new agencies that I would suggest we place the ICE activities in. That would include no masks for some of the 10 reforms. No masks, mandatory body cameras, a required bit of both independent civil and criminal investigations that are shared with reports to the general public to make certain that there not be racial profiling, that there be an elimination of targeted activities at hospitals, schools, houses of worship, and yes, even polling places. I think that's important to do. No more of this roving, aggressive patrolling, and no deportation of US citizens. You know, there's a laundry list of at least 10. These items, while many are looking to reform the ICE situation as it exists, I say are sound reforms that should be carried into the negotiations that I would like to see, where we negotiate ICE out, abolish it out, and put it into a series of agencies that will conduct the national security, public safety agendas in a much more sound and respectful and benign way. This has been a scar on our history, and I'm always thinking the world is watching. And it's a bad expression of our wonderful democracy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have to tell you, today I was teaching my courses and I told my students that I was going to come and meet you and moderate this, and they were very, very excited, and they were particularly excited about the next question that I'm going to ask you. Young people across the capital region and the country are being squeezed by rising costs, from housing and student debt to healthcare, and not even having children because of unattainable childcare costs. How are you and your colleagues fighting in Congress to make life more affordable for young people and ensure that they can build literal and figurative homes in the capital region?
Well, we need to make certain, when I was in the State Assembly prior to serving in the House, we advanced a program where parents, even before they had children, could set aside, couples before they had children could set aside dollars for education for their young and have it tax-free with the commitment that it would go towards higher education. There are different elements that we need to do. I think somehow making certain that we invest in higher ed so that the sticker shock isn't as severe as it is, but we also need to undo some of these things that are being advanced by this administration that would find students paying for the next 30 years for their student loans. That is unacceptable. We need to make certain that it's an affordable dream, an affordable bit of higher education, because brain power is essential for our civil society and our growth as a nation. But with healthcare, making certain that, again, we bring back those deep and painful cuts that were initiated with this big, beautiful bill. And, you know, we have worked aggressively in our caucus with the Democrats, making certain that we undo those cuts and allow for the tax credits for subsidies that enable many, many in different income strata to have an affordable, accessible reach to healthcare, quality healthcare. And also making certain that these tariffs are removed. This is a Trump tax on commodities. The president is keen on saying, we brought billions into the country with the tariffs. It's an accurate statement. It's the dollars being paid out of American consumers' pocketbooks that are drawing those billions of dollars. It's a hidden tax, it's a Trump tax, and we should disallow the Trump. It's causing manufacturing prices to go up, and it's hurting our relationship with many allies out there because it's not applied with a strategic point of view. It's applied out of a whim. If some international leader says something I don't like, throw a tariff on his nation. That is not the way a tariff is supposed to be utilized. And to repeat myself, we have the power of the purse, and so those authorizations need to come from the House of Representatives, confirmed by the US Senate, and authorizing the White House to go forward.
Thank you very much for answering those questions, Congressman Tonko. Now, we'd like to get to the final and the most important part of tonight's event, and have you directly answer questions from all of you who have joined us tonight. So please get out your raffle tickets, everyone. And as I mentioned earlier, to ensure fairness in who can ask questions in this limited time that we have, to start with, I will be calling out 6 raffle ticket numbers at a time from this basket. If your ticket is called, please go to an event staff member with a mic in the aisle closest to you. If you're unable to walk up to a mic, stand up for any reason, especially due to limited mobility, please raise your hand with your raffle ticket, and a member of the event staff will bring a mic to you. Please make sure to bring your raffle ticket with you. We will continue this rotation until we have time tonight. Just a kind reminder, please only ask 1 or 2 sentence question and refrain from asking long statements or making commentary. This is to respect and maximize everyone's chance to ask a question. Okay, raffle ticket time. Great. Okay. The first number is pretty long, 870984. The second number is 871092. The next number is 871096. 879067. So 2 more. 871093 and 870912.
Okay, is everybody bashful?
Okay. Looking to see. Please raise your hand or come up to the mic. Otherwise, I can call more numbers. This is a shy audience tonight. I think you just answered all their questions.
Wait a minute, wait,
right?
I think we have someone here,
Oh,
I
great.
think.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
you have a number, okay.
Oh, there's someone there. Okay. Great. Someone is coming up.
You mentioned before about families who are there. Were they here illegally?
When I mentioned what now, I didn't hear
You
the,
mentioned a family that was removed from our area by ICE.
they were here illegally,
They were?
yes.
Thank you for your question. Other questions? Okay, I'm going to, oh, wonderful. Okay, great. It's hard to see from here.
Yeah, I thought we could just.
Okay. All right, so thank you. I will call more numbers. 871085, so I'll do 6 more. 870970. 870966. 871014. 870881 and 870930. Oh, great, we have a few people.
Read them again.
Again?
Just maybe the last 3 digits.
Sure, the last digit 930 881 014 085 966 970. I think we have someone. Wonderful.
Hi, Congressman Tonko. Thank you for coming to this town hall.
My pleasure.
My question is, last April when you did a town hall, you said that a red line had been crossed, and since then, you haven't really seen many consequences. Additionally, when there was a motion on the floor to introduce articles of impeachment against Trump, you voted not to advance that bill. I'm wondering what your idea of correct action for red line being crossed is, and what is required to bring articles of impeachment
Right.
against Trump.
I have voted for some of those articles. If it's poorly drafted, I hold back because I think it would be bad as an outcome if it's not drafted well enough and we don't get the votes. I think we really want to get those votes for that impeachment article. And so, you know, and we're also building a case coterminously. So I think, you know, there are a number of reasons that continue to grow for a successful outcome, but it has to be drafted correctly. And as I said, I voted in the past for some, and I'm hoping, you know, that we can move forward and get that work done.
Thank you. Next question.
As the drawdown in Minnesota goes down, when they remove agents in Minnesota, how do we know they're not just going to start sending them to other cities and states like here in New York? And what are we doing to prepare for them coming in and going after our protesters and going after mass? I've attended a lot of protests, and I'm scared. And I'm scared to have my name, when I put my name down to come to something like this and to register for other things, and I never know who's sitting next to me, it scares me.
Right. I think that you're right, there needs to be follow through on these situations. I think the reforms I'm talking about that would stamp out some of these Wild West behavioral aspects of ICE would be helpful, and certainly the investigative opportunities that would be part of that reform package before any additional resources go towards ICE. As I said, my stand is to abolish ICE and create a situation that is much more structured to a civil outcome that addresses national security and public safety. Also, you know, some are concerned that that there might be an invoking by the president of going even further with powers that he would assume. And I think if that happens, we need to call it a constitutional emergency and make certain we dig deep into the judicial efforts that would be followed and engaging the public in making certain we push back, because we've seen what this has done to communities. The chaos and terrorism, the fear that has existed, the outright execution of innocent people can't be tolerated, shouldn't be tolerated, and we need to go forward with these reforms, which are currently under negotiations. We're not making much advancement right now, but I know we're stalwart in our efforts and hope that those reforms get approved.
Thank you for that question. Next question.
I first wanted to thank you for all you do.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
I've got been many protests so far this year, and you've been at most all of them. And good for you.
Thank you. Well, I think, you know, we need to engage in these outbursts of public opinion, because I believe the White House takes notice and they react to it. So I think, you know, it's swelling. The numbers are swelling, and it's good.
My question is, the Federal Reserve released their wealth statistics, and it shows that, excuse me, the top 1%, they have 50 trillion in wealth. My question to you is, will you commit tonight to tax that wealth at an average of 5%, which would be enough to pay the entire deficit?
Yeah, I absolutely. I have highlighted that it is absolutely essential to make certain that we don't further skew the lack of progressivity of our income tax structure at the federal level. The big beautiful bill did that. The people that won the bonanza were the corporations, many of whom don't pay taxes or don't pay their fair share, and a big bonanza for the wealthiest families, the well-heeled, the well-off. We need to get this done right. Other nations have addressed these affordability issues. Why can't we? As such a sophisticated nation, we should be able to solve it if other nations can. And it's about fairness in tax policy. This is one egregious part of that big, beautiful bill. We need to make certain that young people, young adults that we hear about that can't afford to buy a home, that can't afford childcare costs, and want to be working and adding to society, the list goes on and on. The healthcare situations, the housing costs, they could benefit if we made the tax structure more progressive. Think about it. My generation is grown, the baby boom generation has added a lot of people to this country's population. And it's operating on a future base, a current and growing future base of limited people compared to the baby boomer generation. So we don't have the luxury to do these tax cuts for the billionaires. It was foolish policy. And so yes, I commit to, I've been outlandish in my challenge to my colleagues to make this thing much more progressive.
I have an answer to your question as to why we can't do it. The way to fix it is to get the money out of politics.
Okay.
We need to have all of it financed like they do in New York City.
Right.
That way, you know, and not optional, like this is how it is, and then that keeps the wealthy from buying everything.
Right. There is a high priority bill in the caucus that would be introduced if we assume the majority would be to take the dark money out of politics, have full disclosure, and make certain that everything is identified as to the source, and give benefits to those who are contributing from the everyday American community.
Okay, thank you. I will draw more numbers. Wonderful. I'll read the last three numbers. 920 019 018 681 035 960. Please come up.
We have at least one.
Oh. Okay, I will keep drawing. There's a lot of numbers to choose from. So the last three numbers, 691 070 665 069 068 011. Oof, okay.
I have a number, but I have a question.
Okay, I'm gonna keep going. This is some broken bingo here. We can do this, come on. 674. Say bingo if you got it. 869. 082. 086. 780. 801. What do you think, Congressman? Okay, we have someone coming up. Yes. Great.
Thank you. Good evening. I've had a question about federal spending, and we kind of touched on this, but if I can get a little more specific. The so-called One Big Beautiful Bill has locked in tax rates, income tax rates, for the next several years. I don't think tariffs are a revenue raiser myself. Currently, Social Security, Medicare, and Pentagon spending represent about 65 to 70% of the total budget. What do you think can and will be done over the next several years to deal with both the annual deficit and the outstanding debt? Thank you.
I think there are a number of situations that you mentioned, Social Security, where some have contributed their total responsibility by the month of February. And I think that we have long passed that point where we should ask people to contribute in the upper incomes to additional Social Security stability. I think that, again, we've highlighted the progressivity of the income tax structure. I think that needs to be revamped. You know, while it might have been etched into the big, beautiful bill, there's always ways to amend that legislation and make it work better. And I think there should be incentives for manufacturing and high-tech training, because those are jobs that will pay well and that would make us less reliant on foreign economies and enable us to meet our demands. We learned through COVID that we had a supply-side crisis. And when I go on many tours of manufacturing in the district and beyond, I note that a lot of the equipment, a lot of the heavy machinery that's utilized in manufacturing is not made in the US. And I think that's a major way to grow a strength in our economy and to land good jobs and to invest in research that will develop prototypes that become products for a high-tech society.
And audit the Pentagon, please.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you. By the way, I think ICE was funded to be the 7th largest military in the world, so we could cut corners there too.
So we have more questions?
Hi, Paul.
Oh, hi there.
Peter from Saratoga.
Hi, Peter.
My wife and I just got back from Ottawa, and even though the canals were frozen, the attitudes towards Americans were almost as frozen. My question is this. You earlier said that House of Representatives, Congress has the power of the purse, and tariffs should be approved through those organizations. How were they then put into force if you have the power of the purse?
Well, it's just the whim of the executive who said, I'm going to apply tariffs. The Congress, I think Republicans included in this, many of us are not that in favor of applying tariffs, especially without a strategy. And so he just went ahead, and the attitude is see me in court. And so we're going through the court process. There should be a decision from the Supreme Court, I would say in the ensuing weeks, as to their take. But with the Supreme Court, we may have our work cut out for us to make certain that we advance legislation, especially if we flip the House in a few months. It would be something that we should really strongly encourage. But he's taken advantage of a system and just went forward with the tariffs and said, I'll do it by executive order.
But who's collecting it now?
He collects the resources, and then again, the accountability here is a pretty low level, and people are trying to, again, bring about all sorts of reviews with hearings and stuff. But to your point, there's a lot of concern about those tariffs, and for instance, even the Venezuelan oil that they're taking over. And when he went in and unseated the governing group in Venezuela, now is importing this oil. And where are those dollars going? So as a member of Energy and Commerce on the Environment Subcommittee, as the ranking Democrat, we're pushing to get information as to where those dollars are going. My sense is they should go toward programs that assist people in paying their utility bills.
Thank you. Next question.
I just wanted to point out that oil money is sitting in Saudi Arabia right now in a foreign offshore account. Anywho, the original question was, how are you ensuring that we do not lose our Fourth Amendment under unwarranted search and seizure?
One of the reforms that we're fighting for is the requirement for judicial warrants, not administrative warrants that folks in these detention centers are authorizing, but they need to be judicial warrants, and requiring that as a must in our reforms. It's one of the requirements we're asking for.
Okay, well, I think it's time to retire the raffle tickets, and I would like to just ask you to raise your hands. If you have questions, I will select 6. I'm just going to step out so I can see better. Okay, great. So gentlemen in the front, then let's see, lady in the back, yes, I think wearing green. Yes, you just look back. Yes, you, yes. Sorry, it's so hard to, oh, actually you're wearing black. Now let's see, lady in the front. And 3 more. Let's see. A gentleman wearing kind of purplish, pinkish, green. Yes. Okay, 2 more. A gentleman standing with a hat. And 1 more, okay, a gentleman waving in blue jacket. Yes. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi,
Thank you.
Tonko. Hi, my name's Maxwell from the park. I've been trying to reach out to you for the past about 6 months to a year. I like to say every couple of months I call and leave a message. I haven't had a call back from you yet. This is more of a nationwide question, and I'm sure I'm not the only one that sees it. If anybody that goes outside their door and just looks up at the sky and sees all these chemical trails that are being dropped by these airplanes, they're not contrails. Okay, everybody, they're real, they're chemtrails. What are they? Can you shed any light on that whatsoever? As being a state taxpayer, looking out for our fellow Americans and our family and everybody, what exactly are they spraying in the skies? And if it's no harm, no foul, why isn't it open to everybody know what's going on?
Right. Yeah, let me, I will take that to an appropriate agency and see if they have any documentation, and scientific question.
There's actually a lot of states that have already banned it, but because it's above 2,000 feet, it's at a federal level, so there has to be more light shed on it.
Okay.
It's not a conspiracy, it's a real thing that's happening above.
No, I hear you. No, I hear you. Thank you, Maxwell. But we will, let me check into the appropriate agencies, start with some of the folks that even
when you see checkerboards in the sky, it's something's going on. It's not a condensation drill, you know?
Right.
They sit there all day and they just float as they get bigger and bigger and bigger.
Okay, thank you. We have a long line now. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving me a chance to come here. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. I have a personal issue. It's a very big issue, sir. Like my son, here is the picture of my son, Bilal Ishfaq. He is missing from almost 4 years. 16 March this year be his 4th year. Police was informed within 15 minutes when he was not found around the house. And from that time to this time, I have so much difficulty to find my son. Nobody properly helped me. And he was 6 months old, my baby. I was living in San Antonio, Texas, and somebody killed his father and all the people in the store in Texas, San Antonio. I have so miserable life. I come here after 3 years of my marriage. I have started this problem. First they killed my husband and I got no money from anybody from them. I don't know, I keep working day and night to make my life. And now I came to New York and I have a very better life. But sir, unfortunately, after the COVID 2 years, the kids were all at home. They were not going to school. And after that,
okay, thank you very much.
I'm really, I just want to ask you help because this killed my life and everything. I cannot find myself. Nobody is helping me. The police and the report.
Give it. Yeah, these are people that work with us, so we will work on your case. And is your contact information there?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I can give them the.
Well, let me say first and foremost, I'm sorry for your loss, and let's hope that we can solve your concern. Thank you so much for coming too. And again, I feel the concern that's so deep with you.
This was in Clifton Park.
Okay. Okay. Kelly, who do we have? Hi.
Hi, I'm Patricia from Del Mar.
Hello, Patricia.
Hi. I would like to know, will you introduce or join legislation to compel ethics reform and term limits on the Supreme Court?
The Supreme Court is under scrutiny, and I know the Judiciary Committee and others are holding hearings to see, whether they should add numbers to the court, put on term limits or what have you. I will make certain that we stay in touch with you in terms of those reforms, because there's a lot of concern about the Supreme Court these days.
Hi, I'm Jennifer. I'm from Saratoga. There have been reports about DOH buying up a large number of warehouses across the country. Can you comment on that? The reports are random. I know there's one, I think, in southern New York, maybe Chestertown or Chester. It's concerning to me, just because it's just happened really quickly and we are not getting a lot of information about that.
You're talking DHS or DOH?
DOH, I'm sorry. Department of Homeland Security.
Oh, yeah, DHS, yeah, not DOH. Okay,
yeah.
Right, yeah, we're seeing it in the news across the country and a lot of communities. This is where public participation is showing its real strength. People are showing up and in Republican and Democratic communities and independent lots, they are just rejecting this. They don't want these detention centers. They're tired of ICE, and they're not allowing it. Some communities are establishing no ICE zones. So, you know, it's a local driven effort to make certain that, you know, these centers are not developed. And hopefully it can be part of our negotiations too, to encourage stronger protection for communities with these detention centers. I hear you.
It's a nationwide issue.
Oh, no, it's a nationwide issue, but the local jurisdictions have hearings on these, and when the local decision makers hear the outburst, they turn it away. I hear the plea to abolish ICE or to cut their funding. I'm with you. I hear your sentiments. I'm with you all the way, and I'm going to be your warrior in the House.
Thank you. I, like many of us, are outraged and furious over the Epstein files. How do I look at my state and say these global elitists can get away with anything? Anything. We have protected these people for years. When are we going to hold these people accountable? From the top down.
I share your sentiment, your concern about the victimization of children, of young women that were prey to these individuals who evidently have powers of protection. I can tell you that I said children and women, young women, the children, and I can tell you that if it had not been for the Democrats in the House pushing for a motion to discharge, an effort on the House floor, a process that requires, if you get enough signatures, to put the bill to a vote on the floor. And the public sentiment drove that process. And so with the scant few numbers of Republicans, we were able to pass that legislation, and now the files were released. They were charged, the president was charged by law to release all of them. About a half of the 6 million documents have been released. So we are going to continue to push for him to fully respond to that legislation that we passed. I am asking the Judiciary Committee for authorization to go in and see the unredacted volumes of files. I want to go in there with my colleagues and see what they are trying to redact. And we know from reports from the press that they have taken the victims and not redacted their names or their photos, and they have covered for the perpetrators. So this is a cover-up, in my opinion. When Attorney General Pam Bondi came before the House, it was a callous disregard for the legislative process, the legislative branch. Did operation research on every member of the panel and accused them of doing some wrong, never stayed with the issue. So we're in the midst of solving this thing. It's going to take a huge effort, but I can tell you there's every push being made to get every bit of those files released, no matter whose name is in there.
Hello. I'm Ralph Ambrosio from Bethlehem. You have voted for large subsidies and expenditures on green energy while restricting abundant and cheap fossil fuel sources. You voted against the recent tax cuts and bills that would have lowered energy costs, like HR 1, the Lower Energy Costs Act. Do you bear some responsibility for the current affordability crisis we have?
You know, I think, well, look, I hear your concern for utility costs, and you know, I really make it my effort to make certain we can make those affordable. I think, you know, I'll be releasing a letter to the president in either next week or the week after to restore those incentives that he took away from the consumer that were part of the Inflation Reduction Act, which made opportunities much more affordable. It provided incentives for renewable energy. We need to put up energy quickly. The quickest we can put on board and the cheapest is renewable. The dollars that you're talking about, were to underpin coal as a fossil fuel. Coal is outpriced in the market. It is the most expensive form of power, and the president is underpinning it to make his buddies who donated billions. He said, give me the billions and I'll keep you flowing. Coal is outpriced and it's polluting. And that was part of the bill, and I voted against it. You're right.
Good evening, I'm Robert from Glenville, originally from the Bronx. I'm going to be a little tougher than my predecessors. I think you're barking up the wrong tree. I think that the Democrats are ineffective and basically incompetent. And the reason is because you're talking about the flower pots on the new house and even what flowers we should put in the pots. We need to be dealing with the foundation. Democracy itself is threatened by this administration. We need to stop talking about their policies versus the Democratic policies. We do no longer have the luxury to be
I'm sorry,
discussing
do you have a question?
policies.
We'd love to hear a question.
Yeah, I'm going to ask a question. Okay? I would like to know why the Democrats and people that are against this administration, which is a disaster, is a autocratic administration, instead of talking about policies, are not every day, playing what the Republicans said the day of and the day after January 6th. Not what they said recently, but what they said when they were faced with it, that day and the next day. Why we are not hearing every day on the TV, on the radio, Trump saying, well, sometimes you need a dictator.
Okay, I'm sorry, we have such a long line, and would you like to respond? Or,
Look, I hear you about the messaging. I tell people all the time in the House and in my caucus, we have to do more than just be against President Trump. We have to put together a Project 2028. And I'm working with my colleagues to do that because the people need to know what we stand for and know that we're against this administration, which is taking away many human rights, environmental rights, you name it. It's a disaster. We need to message on both accounts, policy and the impact of rights being taken away, which I think is dreadful.
Okay, thank you. And just a reminder, please ask your questions. I know there's many who want to ask as well.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Olivier from the Capitol. I'm here on behalf of the Banyamulenge community, which is a bunch of US citizens originally from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. We live here as business owners, working in different jobs, so we're happy here. However, back in eastern DRC, in the mountains of Minembwe, where our beloved ones still live, a rain of drones and bombs are falling over our beloved ones right now as I'm speaking. And we are delighted that the US government is now into a mineral contract with the DRC government, which you might be aware of. But
sorry, once again, if you could just ask your question.
Yeah, my question is, we need your help, dear Congressman Tonko, to ask the US government, to ask President Tshisekedi and the President of Burundi to stop these killings. I would like to hear from you directly how you can help us, because we need your help. Innocent lives, innocent people are dying right now. Thank you.
Sure. Bringing it to the attention of the Foreign Affairs Committee, Greg Meeks is the ranking Democrat on the committee. He's a New Yorker, fellow New Yorker from the city. The whole exploitation of the the people of the Congo is now being very much documented, and I think that there needs to be an assistance that provides them some sort of escape from that tyrannical government.
Okay, thank you. Next question, please.
Hi. One of the attractions 50 years ago when I came to this country and I had a lot of black hair and black beard was the rule of law. Nobody is above the law. You have passed a law in the Congress, in the House and the Senate. Epstein information should be out. Clear, and the president has signed it. Clearly, the spirit and the letter of the law is broken. What is the consequence for somebody who breaks the law?
Look, as I acknowledge, I truly believe this is a cover-up, and we are in the midst of pushing every way we can to get into the review of these unredacted documents, bringing forth public information and making certain that either reaching to constitutional authorization or judicial outcomes to make him comply with the law. You know, he's dragging his feet. It's obvious from Pam Bondi's presentation that they don't want to share the information, and he had pledged that he would. So we're going to continue to pursue that full release of all the files. Well, you know, if we're building this case and he doesn't comply with the law, impeachment is always out there. Would I move for impeachment? Hell yes!
Thank you. And I would just like to say quickly, we only have time for questions for those who are already in line, so thank you.
Thank you. My name is Thomas Gray, ID W236. I'm a Coast Guard veteran. I believe the president's current messaging is an effort to manufacture consent from his base and compliance in advance from us. I think he wants to send armed people to the polling stations during the midterm elections. You told us we need to lean into our power, and that is the means of production. Such an action demands a general strike and nationwide. But that requires months of organization in advance, and it needs leaders who buy in and support and promote and push that. And I'm asking you to actually get on board with this. Senator Gallego is already messaging on it. I think it really needs to take off, and I think you'll get a lot of support from your base, and you will have a message that reaches multiple generations and people who will support you.
Okay, thank you. I agree, and thank you for your sentiment.
Hi, I'm Maria from Saratoga Springs, and I'll make it really quick. So I really was, I felt what you're saying about the young people and concerned about affordability. For those of us who are hoping to retire in the next few years, that's a strong feeling for us too. In terms of the grifts that are making it so hard for us to keep our quality of life, the next big one, and this is not a slur against the technology, but the AI industry is now asking that there be no regulation on the state levels, and I want to know what your assessment is of the likelihood of them being successful.
I think that there's a sentiment in the House with a number of hearings going on to establish the guardrails and the safety nets around AI. There's good that can come from it, but we also have to safeguard public information and in data that and documentation that are extremely personal and need to be safeguarded. So it's an industry that I think is going to get regulated in some form or fashion. And I think we need to.
Hello, I'm Ben from Ballston Spot. This is a question about the concept of soft versus secession. And just wondering what you've heard about it or people talking about, do you support it? Soft secession is when a bunch of states get together and just refuse to cooperate with the federal government. For example, refusing to have federal taxes paid to the federal government. So we're not funding our own oppression. And it goes into receivership or something. So I'm just wondering if that's a topic of conversation at your level and what you think.
Yeah, I've heard mention of it. It's not really that big a topic of discussion, But I think, we should do our best to provide for efficiency and accountability and keep the states united and just get the act cleaned up, I think.
Hello, you've spoken about hopefully impeaching Trump, taking action, blah, blah, blah. But this all depends on getting the House flipped. I want to know what steps, what thoughts the Democratic caucus has to combat what Trump is attempting to do with the elections. We know he's trying to rig them. What are you doing to prevent that?
Well, we are making certain that, again, this whole Save America Act that he advanced and passed in the House without my vote is an effort to suppress the vote. And so what we're doing is working now with our counterparts in the Senate to deny the legislation. The president looks like he wants to go with an executive order, which we will take litigation toward. But this bill, if he continues with it, would make it very difficult for some people to vote because, for instance, women would have to come up with an ID, and if their name has changed with marriage or whatever, it's going to make it more complicated for them. These are added prices to get an enhanced driver license or a passport or to get some documentation with your birth certificate. These are things that are just about suppressing the vote. And the final biggest piece of the Save America Act is requiring the states to file their voter registration rolls to the Department of Homeland Security. And I'm saying, no way, no way. So we got to fight this thing, and we're out there doing all we can to public message and encourage the public to get involved.
Hi, Jason Moyer from Clifton Park, Half Moon.
Hey, Jason.
Hey, I was wondering if you're aware of the trying to bring it closer to home. I'm sure you're aware of the Global Foundries expansion.
Yes.
And which is, of course, in most cases, is a really good thing. A lot of good's going to come from that. But there's some supportive structures from industry that are going to support getting that thing built and the housing and et cetera that are getting built. And we have a project that's being proposed in Clifton Park, Half Moon. And I was wondering if you're aware of some of the support structures that are being developed and built in order to support that whole industrial complex. And some of them, we're working on one right now on Route 9 in Clifton Park. It's a concrete batch plant. It's in the middle of residential area right next to a protected wetland. And I was hoping that you could speak to what you could do to get the DEC to really take oversight there. There's a proposal to them, but we don't know what the termination is going to be, and we just we're not against it. We just want oversight.
Yeah. Well, Jason, I hear your concerns, and I understand what it would mean to the local community. So, look, I think we have proven through the course of the last few decades that environmental standards, environmental stewardship, and the growth of the economy can happen coterminously. There is every reason to believe that. We've had success rates there. I think for anything like those projects that you've cited, they would have to go through at least state, if not federal, probably both environmental standards and reviews, and they would have to respond to those given guidelines. And so we'll be happy to work with you or your group to make certain that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed.
All right, we'll get an email out.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we have.
Is that it? Is that it?
Okay. If no one else, okay. So we have time for two more questions. You have your hand raised. So lady here and gentleman standing. Yes. Yes.
Before the gentleman asks his question, let me remind you whose hands were up and you didn't get called by our great moderator. Please send them off to us to the office so that we can respond to your concerns. We will.
Hi, Paul. My name is Darlene McGraw. I'm from Mechanicville. First of all, I wanted to thank you and your office for coming here and helping us, and thank you for providing the support you did to our community in Mechanicsville. My question is, Social Security programs and other programs are not giving the adequate amount of assistance to help those of us with disabilities because we're trying to work and we often fear whether we should work or whether we should stop working so that we can get our disability benefits. I bike 16 miles each way during the summer to SPAC and do security just to work, only for a few months, and then leave, and then ruin my Social Security benefits and ruin my whole job stuff, and then have to get crazied up with my money just to work and have screwed my Social Security benefits up. I hope that you plan on trying to work with the other people doing something better. And if you have any other ideas, could you please let the community know, because I know I'm not in the only situation.
Now, we certainly want to make certain that disabled benefits are honored and enhanced. And, you know, it's about, again, working for, you know, the average American out there and making certain that we're taking care of those, you know, basic, essential investments that are about quality of life and workability for you and your family. Yes, sir.
I'm Dave. We're right here in Ballston Spa. Your first answer tonight, you talked about public sentiment driving change. I would say that a lot of problems we have in this country are foundational to the country itself. And I think maybe a cause of that is we've not had a meaningful constitutional amendment in this country since 1971. So 50-some years. Is there any constitutional amendment, such as possibly age limits for representatives and presidents, considering the run of presidents we've had recently, that have been well past retirement age, and people on both sides of the aisle? It's a Democrat and Republican issue. We can name a lot of ones that have well past retirement age. Is that something that you would support? And I know we all talk about, oh, you know, anyone talking about constitutional amendment, it can never be done. But you just said, Epstein, we were able to have Congress come together when public demands action and do it. 79% of people in a 2023 Pew study supported age limits for federal offices. Is that something you think we can get through? Because the amendment process has to start with Congress. 2/3 you have to do it.
Right.
And the Senate, before it goes to state. So what can be done? Because 50 years of no change in this country, of an actual real change, I think that's a good reason why we're sitting here and so many angry people all around us. So what can be done to actually fundamentally improve our government?
Well, the Constitutional Convention is a means of addressing the Constitution. I know that there's always been, you know, very safe steps taken to adjust the Constitution because it's a, you know, it's been a document that's survived for a long time. But, you know, any issue like the one you raised would be aired in Congress, and it would be up to the 2/3 to say, yes, let's go forward and have a convention. I'm all with you there. I mean, you know, corporations are people too hasn't worked as a concept. So I hear you loud and clear, and I share the sentiment. But
Okay, well, thank you so much for all these really, really great questions. And Congressman, you have the final word.
well, look, let me thank you all for the energy in this room and the commitment in this room. Obviously, it's a trying time in government. The everyday average American is taking it on the chin with a lot of these changes and these reforms. We've seen havoc and chaos in the communities that are driven by agencies that are supposed to provide for national security and public safety, and the reverse course has been the outcome. So we need to do better. We can do better. I'm going to continue to work to make certain that there's more progressivity in the income tax structure, that programs that address the affordability of housing, of utility bills, of groceries, of health care, of nutritional programs are real in the lives of people, affordable, and make government more accountable. We've got our work cut out for us because all the pledges that were made by this administration have been broken. And now it's given to the benefits of those who donated to these campaigns that are in the billionaire category and the corporate wealth that seems to get added attention with this administration. We can and we will do better, and it's with the voices that we all share in this room and beyond. So thank you for your participating tonight. I appreciate our guest moderator, Doctor, thank you for your help. And let's go forward with sound voice in government, and let's make it happen.